If you are in your second or third trimester and you have been avoiding watching birth stories, you need to stop that. And I am going to tell you exactly why this is a really important way of preparing yourself to have a baby. The first reason that this is so important is it shows you what's possible. And maybe you're like, I don't want to know what's possible. I don't want to see that. Maybe you are squeamish about birth. Chances are, if you are squeamish about birth, or if you do feel contraction in your body when you think about birth and you just don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're watching that, think about why that could be. Think about how labor and birth has been portrayed in probably pretty much any movie you've ever seen that includes a laboring person in it. Chances are they are screaming in so much pain, like writhing in pain, grabbing onto their partner's hand, like squeezing the life out of it, and yelling. And it just seems so chaotic, so out of control. It seems like the person is suffering, right? So no wonder you don't want to watch birth stories. That's what you associate with birth. I want to show you that there is actually a completely different way to give birth that you have not been shown. And those are the stories that I want you to pay attention to. I didn't know myself until I was probably in my second trimester when I was pregnant with my first son that a positive birth experience was even possible. I was one of those women that was like, I have a low pain tolerance. Give me an epidural as fast as possible. I don't want to feel anything. And I felt nervous about the inevitable part of labor where I would be in active labor and having contractions, but not far along yet, enough along yet for the epidural. I was afraid of that window of time. Like, I'm not gonna be able to handle it. I'm just gonna have to get through it. Hopefully, it's not too long because I've heard and I know that first time births, especially, tend to take longer than if it's your second or third, and so on. So I was just one of those people that was freaked out about birth. And it wasn't until I was in my second trimester. And thank goodness I found this because not everyone does. Many people go all the way up to labor feeling like that and do suffer through the contractions. I'm so grateful that I found out that a positive experience was possible for me. And watching birth stories really actually helped me believe that. Um, Watching birth stories where the women are not writhing in pain and just feel like they have this powerful energy and feel in control and even feel calm, that really shifted my whole trajectory of how I ultimately experienced birth. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing it because I know so many women have birth fear. So many of us, it's subconscious. We've taken it in throughout our lives in terms of what we've seen, what we've heard about birth. I also find that people are quick to share the negative stories and not quick to share the positive stories. It's a really strange thing. I'm such an advocate for sharing the positive birth stories because I think we deserve to know that that is possible for us, right? And of course, there are some unknown, unplanned elements of birth, but when you prepare your mindset, when you see the different options that are even available to you, right? You see the different ways other women give birth, it just opens your mind in so many positive ways, including helping you go with the flow with the various twists and turns that labor can take. So, it's so, so important for you to watch birth stories, but not just any birth stories, the right birth stories, the ones that feel calming, the ones that feel so empowering, the ones that make you believe that you can do it yourself. Those are the ones to watch and put blinders on to any of the negative stories, not because I want you to think that that's never possible for anyone, but because that's what you've seen already. That's what you've heard about already. We need to swing the pendulum back and actually show yourself, show your mind, show your body that a positive, calm, lovely birth is actually possible, right? So be discerning with the birth stories you watch, but watch them because you do need to show yourself some evidence of what a positive birth can actually look like. And that helps shift your belief system, shift your energy around birth, shift some of that fear, right? And get fear to take more of a backseat, and your confidence going into it can take more of the front seat. So that's number one. The second reason why it's so important links to number one, but instead of just getting your logical mind on board, which is what number one did, right? Showing yourself what's possible, letting yourself physically see something so that your logical mind can get on board with knowing that a good experience is possible for you. The second thing that I want to dive into a little bit more has to do with your subconscious. So, a lot of the fears that other people have projected onto you, or you've taken in or told yourself in your own mind, and therefore anchored it in further, say if you have fears around birth, they're playing a part, right? They exist in your subconscious, and these fears could actually bubble up while you're in labor, and it actually can do things like increase the level of pain you experience in labor, which is so, so fascinating. I think so many of us think of birth as this physiological process, and of course it is, but our minds actually play a huge part in our experience. Our minds play a huge part in terms of the level of pain we feel. And there is a cycle called the stress tension pain cycle, and it's this idea that when you experience stress or fear, your body tenses, okay? So this is the first step of the cycle. You feel the fear, and then the impact of that is your body tenses. When your body tenses, you physically feel more pain, right? So it's a mental signal, perhaps a subconscious signal, that ultimately leads to the increased sensation of more pain during labor, which is the opposite to what any of us want, right? So it's really important to actually get your mind on board and reprogram your subconscious fears when it comes to birth to interrupt that cycle. When you feel calm mentally about birth, when your subconscious takes on more of the narrative that I've got this, like, yeah, I can give birth. I am capable. I feel confident. I even feel relaxed at the idea of giving birth, or even excited at the idea of giving birth and meeting my baby. You are sending such a different signal to your body. Your body doesn't tense, it stays relaxed, and then you feel less pain during labor. So this is really interesting because in North America, where I'm from anyway, there is a huge amount of fear women have when it comes to birth. You know, it's more common to get an epidural than to have a natural birth. And I'm not saying there's one right or way, wrong way. We're not getting into that here. I think it's actually really empowering that we have options to us. But I think one of the reasons why we ask for the epidural is because we fear the pain, right? We don't want to put ourselves through it. We view it as putting ourselves through something because of all the fear that we've taken on about birth. Whereas if we feel more empowered about birth, we know that it's actually possible for us to reduce our pain levels. We can actually experience less pain during labor. We can prepare ourselves in such a way that we end up needing fewer interventions and the cascade of interventions that can lead to emergency situations. It's so, so fascinating. So, this is a lighthearted video about stop avoiding watching birth stories, but there are so many deeper reasons why I want you to stop avoiding watching birth stories. And it includes better outcomes for yourself and your baby during birth when you feel better. Plus, you just feel better in the lead up. So, watching these stories starts to reprogram that subconscious, starts to bring the pendulum back. And if you can even relax, here's a practice for you. If you can relax while watching the birth stories, do some slow, deep breathing. You're teaching your mind and your body to feel safer around labor. The third reason why I want you to stop avoiding watching birth stories is because it gives you an array of options to choose from. It's actually really fun. So when you approach this with curiosity and, you just watch, right? Or you listen to birth stories, that's a way you can do it too. But when you see them physically too, you're like, oh, I didn't even know that it was possible to give birth in that position or to labor in that position. And oh my gosh, I can totally see how gravity could work with me in that instead of fighting against gravity by just lying on my back. Like it just gives you ideas of things that maybe you haven't even seen before or knew as possible. And then, you can just tuck that away for when you're in labor and or to talk to your birth professionals about it and be like, what about this option? What about this option? It also gives you an idea about the type of environment you want to be in for labor. You might see someone laboring at home and maybe they labor at home for a while and they're in their sunny living rooms, they're on their big like yoga ball, they're, watching a show or just like listening to a meditation or you know, like they have candles going if it's the evening. Like you will find different ideas of the environment that you're like, oh, I want to set up my space to be like that. Like that seems really good to me, really relaxing. And that's the goal. And then if they switch to the hospital, then you might get some ideas of what you want to do in the hospital, request that they dim the lights because that's so good for all the natural chemicals going on in your body in labor and decrease any stress hormones, right? Increase the chemicals that help you feel lower pain and help birth still progress. Um, there are some really cool things you can do in the hospital as well to set that environment. And watching other people's stories also gives you more of an idea of like who you would want around you in labor. Some people feel so empowered and so supported when they have like a few or many favorite people. And then other people, and maybe more like me, where I just wanted it to be my husband and my main midwife and the extra midwife that came along with her. Like that sounded so peaceful and lovely to me. So it just gives you so many good ideas. So those are the three reasons that I need you to stop avoiding birth stories. It's so powerful to actually just show yourself what is possible, show yourself that a positive experience is possible, and just a few extra quick tips before you go off and start watching birth stories. My first recommendation, especially if you're someone who is very squeamish around birth, is just to ease into it. You can listen to birth stories. You can watch birth stories without seeing everything. Some birth stories don't show everything, so they're not very graphic. You can start with those ones and then ease into the ones that maybe do show everything and just show you the physiological process that is going to be happening. I was someone who was hesitant to watch everything, and I thought I would feel like squeamish or it'd be too much. But I eased into it, and it actually was really helpful just to know what to expect. And I'm grateful for the people who have been brave enough to film their birth stories and share it on the internet because so many of them available free on YouTube. And it's helping us women who and the people who are giving birth who just want to feel so much better about their own birth experience. So shout out to you if you're randomly watching this and you have taped your own birth. The next tip that I have for you is to be discerning. So it's really important that you kind of tune into the energy that you would want for your own birth, even if you haven't really thought too much about it yet. But say you want it to be calm, say you want it to feel more like wild and like goddessy. Like say you want it to feel supported and like that community thing. Say you want it to feel like a dark cave. Say if you want it to feel just like calm, peaceful, light, airy. There are so many different vibes you can go for. And some births are loud, some births are quiet. Um, be discerning with the types of videos that you watch because like I said, we've already seen so many of the negative ones, so many of the ones that go wrong. I recommend you listen to the calm birth stories. So you can even type that into your YouTube search, calm birth story. Look up hypnobirthing stories. Those ones are often really calm, really gentle. Hypnobirthing births tend to have such a relaxing feel. Those are the types of births that I had. And I labored at home. and then went into the hospital for mine. So you can have a hypnobirthing birth anywhere and watch those and be discerning. If you start to get a vibe like, oh, this isn't really what I'm after, flip to something else. There are so many different options out there for you. Third tip, be curious when you're watching it, right? Don't be like so serious, like just be curious and just notice things, like notice that they have music on, or notice be like, "Oh, interesting position." Like just add add an element of playfulness to it and make it more of a fun process than like a thing that you have to like study and ace and just be like take so seriously. And then finally, know ultimately that your birth is going to be unique. So even though you're watching other people's stories and some can take a similar path, your birth story is going to be uniquely yours, right? So it's so important to also, even if you kind of like latch on to a specific vision and you see a birth story, you're like, that is exactly what I want. I'm going to recreate this. Allow in some flexibility just even into your mind and strengthen that muscle within you that trusts yourself, that trusts your body, that trusts your baby. And you can have a vision, and I say have one, right? Have a vision, have something that you are working towards. It's going to increase your chances that you're going to have a birth like that if you prepare yourself for it. Also, prepare for flexibility and a flexible mindset and to go with the flow. And I say this because so many women experience birth trauma because they have like one specific thing in mind for how they want their birth to go. And if it doesn't go according to that plan, they end up experiencing stress, anxiety, um, even some just like panic and trauma from it. Birth trauma is incredibly common. And I know that some of the root behind that is we are not preparing ourselves in a way that sets us up for success when it comes to birth. And I don't just mean in terms of the outcome that we have, but I especially mean in terms of the mindset we have as we go through birth. So that's what I have for you. And if you are like, okay, this is great, but where the heck do I get started? I've actually curated my favorite calm births that really helped me feel just more positive about my own birth going into it. And like I could do it too. So I've curated the most gentle, lovely births that I saw on YouTube. Um, Read through different books and made a list for you just so that it's super accessible and so you're getting into like a gentle start, right? And I've teased out any videos that didn't pass the energy test and do have that really calming, uplifting, empowering vibe to them. But that is not all you need. So when you prepare for birth stories, obviously, for all the reasons I said, are really, really helpful. They get your logical mind on board. They start to reprogram your subconscious. You also need to train your mind more fully and your body to relax about birth, to break that cycle that I talked about, that stress, tension, pain cycle, to do that like a pro, so that you go into birth knowing what to do, knowing how to break that cycle, and know how to feel calm during it and have a better birth experience. So stories is one component of that. There are also other things you can do to reprogram your subconscious mind at a more direct, powerful level. Hypnobirthing is hugely beneficial for that. That's what it's all about. And I also can teach you about that. The basics of hypnobirthing, the two breathing techniques that you need. That's it. Two breathing techniques, one for early labor, one for later in labor. And also my favorite hypnobirthing meditations that you can listen to leading up to labor that actually are just so calming and lovely that you will fall asleep to the thought of birth. And that's how relaxed your body is going to be. Your body is going to be so relaxed at the thought of birth, you can actually fall asleep at the topic of it. And if you're someone who contracts at the thought of birth and is just like, ugh, this is so important for you. You definitely need to do this step. It's going to be so beneficial for you during labor to reduce pain and also in the lead up to reduce that fear that you feel. Get rid of the fear. And it's so possible to get rid of the fear. I did it. I got to the point where I was actually so excited and planned water births And I said earlier, I was one of those people that thought I wanted the epidural right away. I had 2 water births, unmedicated, because of how well the priming that I did for my mind and my body in the lead up, how well it prepared me, how confident it made me feel in my own body, and it's the most confident I've ever felt in my own body in my whole life. And I want more women to experience that power within themselves, no matter how you give birth. I want you to feel powerful, in control, and like you've got this because it is possible for you as well. So, as well as reprogramming your subconscious, it's also so empowering to know that a low pain birth is possible. Some people might think that is BS, but it's so possible to have a low pain birth. I did it for my second one. It was so cool. And my first one, I was able to manage and get ahead of the pain and watch it shift to the point that it wasn't the thing I focused on when looking back. Um, and it was like the coolest experience of my whole life. So, yeah. So what else do you need? Um, Visualization techniques as well can be so helpful in labor and in the lead up for labor to just know what's possible for you and to make your birth vision come to life. And all of us have different birth visions, which I think is so exciting and so empowering. Like I said earlier, there's no right way to give birth. We have different options. And I think that is really an advantaged place to be, is to have options for how we give birth and choose the one that works best for us. So I've created a course. It's called My Lighter Birth. It gives you all of the tools that you need to program your mindset to go into labor feeling like you've got this, feeling really confident, completely reduce your birth fear. I would even say I eliminated mine going up. I felt so excited, and the other women who have done it since have had natural home births, they've had hospital births, and they have felt more confident and calm and powerful going through it as well. So we think of birth as this physiological thing, but our mind is so present. This course is everything you need to prepare your mindset for a calm, positive birth. It is a self-paced course. You can get started now. If you're in your second trimester, it can take a bit of time sometimes to reprogram your mindset. Get started now, do it at an easeful pace. And if you're in your third trimester, even later, it's not too late to get started. You will get the exact gems that you need to help you now going into the lead up. I even had a full-term mom take this program lately, and she messaged me after she gave birth, and she was actually like, Emma, I thought of you and your voice in labor, and it made me feel so calm and grounded. And I'm so thankful that we connected before I gave birth, because she had the beautiful home birth that she was envisioning, which was so exciting. So you can join now, join My Lighter Birth at the link below to get started. And I promise it will be more relaxing and lovely than you ever thought possible to not only prepare for birth, but also to experience it, even if you're currently squeamish about birth. So enjoy if you join, and thank you so much for being here. I hope you got so much out of the video and you're less scared and more empowered to start watching birth stories.